Yeah, sorry. You were talking about Indians doing well in.
Very well. I think that it may be their background, mathematical background. It might have something to do with Hindu philosophy. The thinking process. They're very fond of cardiovascular
I see.
medicine, for
I see.
example. Yeah.
And what about Goan doctors? How are they doing?
They are doing well.
I see.
I think I would say that they are all very well off. They're doing well. There are very few in the academic world. I'm one of the few in the academic world. And what brought me to fiction is the fact that, see, I wrote poetry when I was in college.
Yeah.
And it just occurred to me, as a matter of fact, that Aurora Koth was my teacher
I see.
in Dempe College.
Really?
Yes. And I wrote poetry, but that was not shared with anybody excepting my closest friend was Nitant Kenkre, who also has achieved tremendous.
Where is he now?
He's a professor of theoretical physics at the University of New Mexico.
I see.
So we were both in Dempe College together. And I wrote poetry. So then, you see, writing has always resurfaced within me, and I think it's genetic in me. See? So I could have become a writer right from the beginning.
If the opportunities were there. Here.
Right. Well, it's very interesting. You see, I went into medicine rather serendipitously, because if Goa was not liberated, I would have certainly gone to Portugal.
I see.
You see, and then I would have followed the tradition of my family, which is usually law.
I see.
And then, but you see, I was very much for democracy. I don't think that I would be able to stay in Portugal. I would probably migrate to France and be a writer.
I see.
Most likely. But the takeover of Goa, the liberation, whatever you want, however you want to call it, I know that there is a lot of controversy there, and integration into India. My uncle convinced me, because he was a lawyer.
I see.
He says, you want to do law? There is no future in law. He says, why don't you go into medicine? And I gave it a thought, and I said, well, yeah, it doesn't seem to be a bad field. It's challenging and all that. I went into medicine. But I always followed the research and the writing path.
I see.
Just seeing patients did not give me the satisfaction. But the greatest satisfaction was when I got my first article published.
I see.
So coming back to fiction, the question that you asked me, I wanted to write a novel about Goa. This thing, always kept ringing in my mind.
I see.
About the time that I'd spent over here. And when I gave all these things a thought, when I started thinking, I found that there was nothing written that I myself, when I was a kid or an adolescent, I knew quite a bit about Portugal, and I knew quite a bit about England, and the British Raj.
I see.
But I never knew anything much about Goa at all, excepting for, things that you take for granted. I mean, you take everything. If you live in a culture, you take the culture for granted. But when you're out of that culture, then you have the freedom to think about that culture. Right. And I think that's what occurred to me. And I thought of writing in 1984. I tried, but I wasn't prepared for it.
And then you did this writing course?
No. Then after Marina died, my wife, a year later, I again went and wrote a poetry, and I wrote an ode to her. And since then, that time I had much more time in terms of work, you see. So what I did was, once I started writing poetry, I couldn't stop. And I read a lot. See, I read, authors like Rainer Maria Rilke, then Goethe, and right from Gomes to to more modern writers like Salman Rushdie. This one, what's his name? V.S. Naipaul. Then Marquez. But a lot of poetry, works of poetry, and I wrote my first collection of poetry. And then I wrote a second collection, which I left, put it in the drawer to write a novel.
Okay.
And that I started, I think, about 12 years back.
I see.
And I sort of had I did not know, you see, what I find, and I must say, the novel gave me the freedom.
Right.
See, I always seek freedom in whatever I do. So it's always been like that with me. So I think
The format of the novel is much more elastic to
yeah,
allow you to take it anyway.
Imagine, yeah.